it.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for tuning in to the Phil Talk Sports Podcast. We're a few days away from Super Bowl 56, so I figured I'd bring on the biggest Bengals fan that I know, Mr. Joey Graves. How's it going, man? It's been a while since we've had you on the show.
Yeah, it has. It's going great. Great time to be a Bengals fan. I'm probably not the last one around anymore. You know, they're popping on the bandwagon all over the place now, but I've been there for a while.
It's true. The last time I had you, this is not Joey's first time on the show. He was on episode 5. We did over 3 years ago, and this is episode 65. So that shows you how far we've come. And if you remember back in the day, we were talking about the AAF and the XFL coming around, and we had such high hopes for all that. And of course, both leagues just went down in flames. So that we didn't really get a lot of predictions right on that.
No, I was excited, man. We have 2 different leagues coming up. Some developmental football might just push up the NFL a little bit more, but yeah, it didn't pan out, I guess.
And, you know, it's almost like Groundhog Day because as we sit here 3 years later, the USFL comes back in a few months, and then the XFL is supposed to give it another crack next year. So we might have to have a similar conversation when we get closer to that.
Yeah, we'll have to. They'll have to hurry up, though. I mean, if they want the old ball coach in, he's getting a little old now.
That's true. Do you got any with the USFL coming in April? Did you have any? I know you've been to XFL games, but do you remember any USFL stuff?
I do not know. I mean, was it the Generals or something?
Yeah.
Spurrier was a coach. Was it Tampa Bay? What were they?
Bandits.
The Bandits. That's what it was.
Yep.
But Spurrier was coaching one of them, and of course he was the winning coach for our Orlando team for the other league. But I never did go to that. The only one that we went to was the Orlando Rage.
Right.
Oh, that was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. And they're supposed to announce team names for that in the next few months. So who knows? Maybe we'll have an Orlando XFL team again. That would be pretty cool to see because it seems like every other, you know, Tampa's doing so good in football and everything. And like Orlando, other than UCF, of course, it gets a little forgotten in the world of football. So and arena football. We still got the Predators. So that's nice.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, congratulations, UCF, on the football with the bowl game, beating the Gators twice. So, yeah, good job.
Yeah, we're moving on up. We're going to the Big 12 in the next year or two, so things are looking up for sure.
Oh, we open with you guys too next year, don't we?
24, so 2 years from now. Yeah, so that'll be some fun stuff too. But we're not here to talk about any of those football teams. We're here to talk about your football team. I don't own a Bengals shirt, so I found the only orange, black, and white shirt I could find. Figured this would do.
I'll take it. Is that Harley Davidson orange or what?
It's actually a wrestling shirt. I do have a Harley shirt somewhere, but it works out. It says time belongs to me, and time kind of belongs to Cincinnati right now because they are, you know, the apple of the NFL eye right now. And like, let's start from the very beginning. You're a Florida boy, born and raised, never been to Ohio. How exactly did you become a Bengals fan? Let's start there.
All right, it's kind of funny. I actually grew up playing Little League all the time. And I was Cincinnati Reds. I was a huge Cincinnati Reds fan. Joe Morgan. I played second base, so I was a big Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench, Pete Rose, all those guys, Dave Concepcion. And I was huge, big red machine. And then as I started getting a little bit older, started getting out of that playing Little League as much and then going to high school. My brother, he went to University of Florida. And then at about the same time, Chris Collinsworth was going into the league. So we jumped over from the Cincinnati Reds to the Bengals with Chris Collinsworth and everybody else. And I just kind of stuck with it. And it's a long road to stick with it, I tell you. They were, other Andy Dalton did make the playoffs for 5 or 6 years in a row, but couldn't do nothing with it. But yeah, it's a long road. My first shirt, I had a Corey Dillon t-shirt, but my first jersey was Kewan Ratliff, Gators cornerback. And he was our nickel back. Everybody gave me heat about why would you buy a nickel, the starting nickel back? He wasn't even a starter. He was just a backup cornerback, but he was that. And then, we had the great time with Ocho. And I was more of a Chad Johnson fan than an Ocho Cinco fan. I think he kind of lost his way a little bit once he started changing his name and stuff like that. But
right.
He got back around in the family. You know, they support him. He comes into some games. So he's made his little trip to the dark side and back around and into the public's favor a little bit more.
Yeah,
I just stuck with him.
Yeah, it seems like a natural fit because you got to think about the era too. Like the Dolphins were around, there was no Jags, which would be the closest team to our area. The Bucks
Right.
are still in their infancy, so it's not like a natural thing to pick
Yeah, there
another
was no
Florida team.
Jaguars at all, so there wasn't a lot of football teams around here. So we had the Dolphins that were down there, and my wife's a huge Dolphins fan. Shout out to Teresa and Donovan too, for that matter. But
Yep, yep.
they so I kind of have followed the Dolphins a little bit just because they're around,
Hmm.
and but yeah, so I just love the Tiger Stripes. They got cool helmets. People are in there out on the helmets. I was a big fan of the helmets growing up, so I just went with them. That
Yeah,
was my
I've always
little.
liked the helmets too for the Bengals. I wasn't crazy about the jersey from like the Chad Johnson era, let's say, but I do love this new style that they've had for the past year or so. Like these are really nice.
Yes, and this is actually the first year they've had them. I love the jerseys.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I was getting a little tired of them. They looked like a USFL jersey or something like that.
Right.
That's kind of what they look like, and I wasn't a huge fan of them. But I gotta wait because I can get me some Super Bowl. Like I know the tip you gave us the other day on Twitter was the veterans tip. Wait till we
Yeah,
see.
yeah. I forget who we were talking with, but they were talking about, let's order all the Bengals jerseys right away. And like when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl, I remember like I thought way too much. What am I going to wear the day of the Super Bowl? And the first thing I wanted to know is what color are we wearing? Because I want to make sure I wear that one. We ended up wearing green. I ended up wearing my Deshaun Jackson jersey because it's the only green one I had that like was going to fit well and everything. And now you
Right.
guys, I guess, are wearing black. That's official. So that
Yes.
might help you with your selection process. How's that selection process going, by the way?
I was like I said, and that was one of our Bengals Twitter, one of my Bengals Twitter people. Shout out to Bengals Twitter. It's a good time. If you don't follow some Bengals Twitter people, they have a good time coming up this on the Super Bowl, especially. It was such an improbable run, but I have decided probably to wait and see because instead of trying to rush one here for the game, I might just go with my Keywan Ratliff because I'm going to stick with what has got us to the Super Bowl.
There you go.
So that's my old black. See, you got me actually a Carson Palmer
Mhm.
black jersey, but I have my Keywan Ratliff as my first jersey I ever bought. It's the black one, so it's got me all through the playoffs and this far. So I'm sticking with that. I don't want to change anything. I'm definitely going to buy a new one, but we got to go with what got you there.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And you said, some people might give you a hard time about the obscure player. I always love when I see, whether it be my team or I'm out at a bar or something, when someone has an obscure player for their team. Everyone's got probably the top 5 jersey sellers for their team, right? If you're
Yeah,
buying someone that's 10 or lower, like I always actually respect that personally.
yeah. I mean, I got the Chad Johnsons, the Carson Palmer, and all that stuff from back in the day, but yeah, I love my Keywan Ratliff jersey. A lot of people don't know who he is, but Florida knows who he is because he obviously was a Gator.
Right.
So that was the connection that I went. So that's what I've been. But that one actually is an old one that went through the dryer a few times. The numbers are kind of coming off a little bit. It
Right.
hasn't been taken care of one or anything. It wasn't sewn on. So
It must be funny now. You hang out with your Bengals people, and I'm sure there's a lot of number 9s in that group. And you got to look like, did you buy the new Joe Burrow, or are you rocking the old Carson Palmer still?
and you know what? That's funny too because this is actually the first year. So you could get an older style Burrow jersey
Right.
from the rookie season.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I'm I can't wait to get the new one. But yeah, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter that have taken the Palmer off the back of him. They're just going with the solo Burrow.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw a few weeks back in one of the games where they ripped his name off his jersey.
Yeah.
So they got sacked. They ripped the Burrow off. So they're going with the whole ghost number 9 look. A lot of
Nice.
people are
Nice.
doing it, but yeah, I was like, nah, I'll just wait and get one.
Yeah, not a bad call. I mean, there's some people that like you buy a college jersey lately, right? Like there's never a name on the back. And sometimes
Yeah,
that's good because like numbers get recycled and it's like it could be this player from the past or it could be the current guy wearing it. So like
right.
I wouldn't hate the idea of like just a generic so when Eagles won the Super Bowl, I bought a custom one with my name and my number and I put like the Super Bowl patch on it. That way it'll never be out of style. So that's I'm sure you're going to want your Joey Burrow, but that's a route to potentially go too.
I thought about doing that because I was going to get me, especially like Gators. I was always like the Gators because they're good guys, wear number 1. So I was going to have the 1 jersey and just put my name on the back.
Mhm.
I thought about doing that with the Bengals as well, but I don't know, man. it's hard to put my name on it when Burrow and Chase have been just. I mean, it's hard. They've been lighting it up. You have to kind of get one to support them.
Yeah, at this point for sure.
Yeah, because everybody was like in or out about Palmer, but it's hard to deny what Burrow has done this year.
It really is. That's a good place to go from here. So last year, you saw flashes of Joe Burrow. You knew this guy was as good as advertised. If nothing else, it was obvious like you made the right choice with the number 1 pick. And that's always not everybody bats 1,000 with the number 1 pick. So just to far we didn't screw it up. That's good news, right? And then the injury happens, which is, got to be Carson Palmer flashbacks, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So going into this year, like what were the reasonable expectations? Just Burrow finishing the year healthy? What was going into the year? What was going through your head?
And to be honest with you, I mean, yeah, I could be like the Homer fan and say, yeah, whatever. But if you want to talk honestly, it was really problematic with the Palmer thing because Palmer, we nailed that number 1 pick. We had it going great. Palmer never came back after the knee injury. He was gun shy. He didn't want to step into the throws. He got a little bit nervous when traffic was around him in the pocket. And I know he kind of put it a little bit behind him once he got to Arizona. And even when he was out there for the Raiders, it still wasn't. It took him years to get mentally back to throwing the ball right. So I was scared. I was like, oh my God, now what are we going to do with Burrow? It's the same thing. Our offensive line is still not the greatest, obviously. That's our problem. So it's like the worst feeling going into the new season with a quarterback who's coming off a major knee injury with a suspect offensive line. There's no way. I mean, yeah, of course you say we're going to the Super Bowl, but realistically, you didn't believe you were going to the Super Bowl. You'd hope you could get a good run, maybe beat the Steelers and be in line for some meaningful games come December was all you really hoped for.
Right.
And then we lose to the Jets and so like we start off doing pretty good. And then you go those few losses in there and you just kind of throw them out. And right around December, I think it was the second Baltimore game. It was Hasselbeck on I think it was ESPN. Matt Hasselbeck, was it Matt?
Matt, yep.
He's the one who noticed, but at that he goes, "This is the first time, guys. The second Baltimore game. This is the first time I've seen Burrow out there warming up without his knee brace on, which was about a year. Not a lot of people picked up on that, but he was watching them in warmups, and right about that point on is when it started taking off. I don't know if it was something with him. I was like, okay, I feel better now. I feel good. The knee brace is off so I can move around. And that's when he started. He was always playing good and Chase was doing great. But once he took that knee brace off and started saying, hey, we're going to make a playoff run. And, it was just going on from there. We got into the playoffs and beat the Chiefs, which was amazing. After we got done, we swept the Ravens, swept the Steelers, which that's just, that's my team. I want to sweep the Steelers every time.
Yeah, if you're gonna sweep anybody, that's who you want to sweep right there.
Yeah, and then I guess the Browns technically swept us, but Burrow didn't play the last game because we already had it wrapped up. But and then when we had to go beat the Chiefs in Kansas City, that was a nail biter. All of them have been kind of nail biters, but shout out to my Gator kicker, huh?
Yeah, that's why you draft a kicker right there. That's been the calling card this whole time. He's definitely made the brand happy. And like, it's funny you mentioned, because we've kind of followed the season on the show throughout the year, and I've picked the Bengals to win some games. I've picked them to lose some games. Right. I had them beating the Raiders. I was kind of coin tossing them with the Titans, but the way the Titans played, they did not deserve to win that game at all. And then with Kansas City, I'm like, it's hard. It's obviously hard to beat Kansas City, and it's even harder to beat them twice. And they were able to pull that off, of course. So with the up and downs of the season, for them to really come together, there was even, there was questions about Burrow. And I remember the beginning of the year, that weird story about like Chase couldn't catch the pro ball because it didn't have the white lines on it. Everybody's freaking out like, oh my God, we drafted a guy that couldn't catch. So like he's even had his stroke of luck,
Yeah. And that was kind of funny because I followed that story too. And then that was just the way that the press always kind of twists things a little bit, Yeah. He did say all that. He was like, they said anything about He was like, no, I can catch football. I've been doing this since I'm like 8 years old, you know.
Right.
But he did say, he goes, the ball's different. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, college is got the stripes on it. You can see it a lot better coming at you. And he was talking about the differences in the ball, not so much as the reason that he couldn't catch it.
Right.
But they came with that, which of course, you know, that's good reporting. You gotta have things to talk
Yeah.
about. Stuff like that.
Need them to click on, you know. And
Yeah, exactly.
it's funny you mentioned that Jets game. Funny enough, both teams in this Super Bowl, you could rename it the teams that lost to the Jets Bowl, because both these teams actually lost to New York this year, as crazy as that is.
You know, that Mike White looked a little bit better than the number 2 pick, actually, to me. But I'm sure they'll put some plays in and get the new regime around the young guy. But Mike White, the Jets, they were playing good there for a minute.
Yeah, like when the Eagles played them, they had to use Minshew, and like I'm a Minshew guy, but like the way that he just like blew the Jets out, and it was like they were coming off beating. It was one of those games that they were coming off a big win, and I'm like, oh, maybe they get something going, and then we just flattened them. So it's like maybe they just used all their magic in one of those games or whatever.
Yeah, that was one of those ones. That, like, you know, almost like the Bengals have been in the past, where you get a few good runs, but it's, you know, it's not going to sustain. It's not going to last. So, you know, I'm just ecstatic that we're lasting all the way. And if everything, I mean, we are in some pretty good shape. Got a young quarterback. We're not going to have to pay him for a couple of years. The young receiver. We haven't said anything about T. Higgins. So, I mean, he's pretty good. Number 2, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, everybody. But we got a young group of players, and we shouldn't have to pay too much. We got good under the cap, good management. So somehow, from 2 years ago to now, the coach has spun things together and put together a pretty good thing that the Bengals have not sat this pretty in a long time. I mean, you never know, but if we have some breaks go our way like we have this year, we could be back a couple times, hopefully, knock on some wood.
Yeah, so I actually had T. Higgins as my player to watch when we did our preview of the Super Bowl, because I figured if they're going to throw the kitchen sink at Chase, it might leave, you know, T. Higgins open to make some plays or whatever. And like I drafted
him in my fantasy league over Chase because I knew that he was going to be the red zone target and all that stuff. And I had hopes and belief in Chase, but I don't think anybody could have predicted this.
Well, I mean, that must have worked out for you because you still won our fantasy league. So clearly that worked out. That's the trophy actually right behind Joey there, behind his left shoulder there. So yep. So he's looking, you know, for a second trophy this year when it comes to football related things anyway. So it's been a good year so far, man. I hope it keeps rolling. What do you think's like the key here? Like if you could decide one thing about this game, like if you could lock down one player on the Rams, or if you can pick the guy that goes off for you guys, what do you think's like the super key thing for you guys to get this done?
You know, it's tough. It's gonna have to be between the offensive line. Joe Mixon, basically. Joe Mixon's got to open up. He's got to open the line up a little bit. If we can get him to get some good runs, then it'll help out the line. Then we got to figure out what to do with Donald, man. That's going to be tough. And our secondary, Matt Stafford, love Matt Stafford, even though he's a Bulldog. Yeah. But Georgia Bulldog. But I'm a big fan of Matt Stafford. I like the way he carried himself through all this time in Detroit. He just seems like a good dude, good story. But I know that he'll take some chances. So our secondary, I think it's going to be O-line in the secondary, basically. The O-line in the secondary is going to be what comes down. We got to be able to stop them somehow from killing Burrow like they like to do. And then our secondary is going to have to come up big. Von Bell and Jesse Bates back there in safety spots are going to be huge.
So there's a lot of talk of like, you know, like it's not often that a team this young makes the Super Bowl. And there's times that they win. I think back to like the first Legion of Boom. That team was very young at the time, and they were supposed to win a whole bunch of Super Bowls. They obviously went back and they lost, and they haven't been back since. You got teams like the Chiefs that.
It's a shame they couldn't get 2.
Yeah. They should have had 2 at minimum. And then you got teams like the Chiefs that started off young when they won their first one. Now we're 2 years later. Contracts are going to start to be a thing. You know, we talked about it the last show I did when I previewed the Super Bowl. When these young teams don't pull it off, there's always the narrative of like, oh, they'll be back. They're young or whatever. And we've seen historically that they don't always get back. Like sometimes this is the window. And for the Rams, I think it definitely is the window because they're all veterans and they're paying everybody overpriced stuff. And like, there's no way this exact team will be back. So what do you think?
pick in the first round for a couple of years.
Right. So what do you think is more pressure? This young team of the Bengals to like, we got to win now because there's never a guarantee that we're back, or the Rams that we assembled everybody this year and this is our time? Who do you think has more pressure based on the way they're built?
Um, that's a good question, by the way. Especially us here in Florida, because my wife being a Dolphin fan, and I remember Dan Marino thought he'd always be back. He thought he'd
Right.
be back. Second or third year, he got to the Super Bowl, and yeah, he's gone on record saying that he thought he'd be back a little bit more, and he could never get one. But I really do think that the way we just came up out of nowhere and just started playing, and nobody expected us to be there. I think we're playing with house money. All the pressure's on them. Aaron Donald's been there, hasn't got one. They got Von Miller now, who's was a good pickup. I think that was a great pickup for them, just like for the to keep everybody fired up, come in and spell people, and just keep everybody fresh. But McVay, if he loses another one, especially if he loses another one to his former understudy coach that my coach is,
You're right.
I think there's a little more pressure on them right now because, like I said, we not that we're just happy to be there, because I don't think that Joe Burrow has let the team feel like that. He keeps everybody they're very they're very driven, but I don't think they seem very loose. They're not playing with a lot of pressure. I think it's going to be on those guys, because if McVay loses another one, Donald loses another one, then people are going to start talking. And like you said, they're all getting a little bit older, and the way the team is built is going to be hard to sustain, because they're going to run out of cap space, and or they're just going to have to trade for everybody because they're not going to have any draft picks left.
Yeah, they're gonna have to continue it that way. And I don't know if you have my script over here, because you basically took me where I was going to go next with the coaching situation. It's kind of a protege versus teacher versus student situation. And McVay's always considered like a genius, right? Guys get hired if they've ever shook his hand. Basically, there was that run of time, right? And you go 0-2 in a Super Bowl. Are we still calling you a genius? So like, I might have to agree with you that the pressure's got to be more on the Rams, whereas the Bengals, like, this is no matter what. This is a hell of a run by them, and it'll always be viewed that way. And then with the Rams, if they fall short, it'll just be viewed that way. So I tend to agree with you that I think the pressure is definitely more so on them.
Yeah, because you're like, you got to worry about that. Oh, well, you thought you'd be back. It was so easy. Well, not easy, but you went there so seemingly effortlessly this year to get up there. And that'll probably be the narrative for next year, whether they win or lose. Is, can they get back, or was it just a one-year wonder? But it just feels like even though they're in the home team, it's kind of nice that we're actually the home team in their stadium.
Yeah, it's funny. That's 2 years in a row. We've never had a team host their own Super Bowl, right? And then it's happened 2 years in a row. Yes. But there's been a but attached to it, because like with the Bucks, they're hosting Super Bowl. Yeah, but it's COVID and there's only like 30,000 people or whatever. And then with this one, they're not even in their home locker room, and plus like LA and home field advantage, that's kind of been it's been debatable, and if there's a true home field advantage in that place.
Right. And it's not like an old style stadium, it's a bigger stadium. It's kind of a little bit more spread out. Everybody's got their things. You don't have that noise on the field like the Chiefs or Seattle, up in there when some of the louder places. And it does have that LA feel that's kind of like they're just people there.
It's just a party.
Yeah, they're just there because it's the place to be. Not so much the Rams are their favorite team. They're not gonna be like 60,000 people that are willing to lose their voice and go all out. They're just here to look good and smile for the camera mostly.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get a bunch of false starts on the Bengals, because the crowd is just so raucous. And then like you listen to Burrow, and he said all the SEC stadiums are much louder than anything going on here. So he says he's battle tested for if that were to happen, at least.
Yeah, and I know he caught a lot of heat about that one as well. But
he's not wrong by any means.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is, especially football down here in the South, which I mean, it gets pretty loud at the bounce house too. But yeah, we got Tennessee. There's like almost 100,000 people up there at Tennessee Stadium. So it's pretty loud in some of them places.
So what do you think is the one guy that keeps popping in my head about this year that isn't on this ride with you guys is AJ Green, who in the past half decade or so was probably the best player that the Bengals had. And like, Is it a little bittersweet that he's not on this team? Because like I remember when the Eagles made it, there was a few guys that I wish Deshaun Jackson was still there. I wish LaShawn McCoy was still there.
Right.
And I know AJ has like tweeted out his best of luck to Cincinnati and everything. So like, I mean, do you kind of wish he was on this team, even at the bottom of the roster somewhere?
It is. Yeah, I got an AJ Green jersey, so I
There
mean,
you go.
he's
Yeah.
my guy. I got one. I do. He's one of the ones that I wish. Geno Atkins. I like. It would be nice if some of them guys could go, but I think that it was. It's sad a little bit, but I think it's one of the things that had to be done. He did try. He could have done. Who was it? Was like the Dolphins, or they traded everybody away, got all these draft picks the last couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
to rebuild the roster. And I think Zach Taylor did try to keep him around. So he kept AJ around for 2 years into his tenure. And he tried to be fair to the veterans, I think. Carlos Dunlap, he ended up getting upset, and we traded him for almost nothing. And then we just didn't have Geno Atkins back or AJ back. And I think it actually cost him probably some draft picks. If you'd have just went in whole, cleaning house and getting all the draft picks and trading off all the equity and assets that we can, it might have changed things. But I think that he did things the right way. I think it just gave it a little bit better vibe around the building that he did try to keep everybody there for a couple of years. Didn't work out, had to be done, so just went new. It would be nice if he could there, but I do like seeing the love across Twitter and across the platforms, and you see him on the TV where they're making their statements saying, "Hey, I'm happy for him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy for them guys." Whitworth, man, we're playing against Andrew Whitworth. I love that guy. That guy is awesome, man. I was sad. He was probably the one of the most sad of that we got rid of because he was just such a great tackle, and he could obviously still play.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
he's been
He's
4 or 5 years now.
still at a very high level. But yeah, with Zach Taylor, it's so tough to like you come to a team that's not great, but there's still like the OGs on that team.
Right.
And like while the collective team might not be great, you're still gonna have like AJ Green was still like a Pro Bowler. Whitworth has, had Pro Bowls. So it's like it's hard to view these guys as assets when like they're still the center point of your team. So yeah, you trade a
Right.
guy for draft picks, you might be able to eventually replace them on the field, but that guy's not going to replace them in the locker room necessarily. Some of these guys have. So like,
Right.
you can continue on this, but like Zach Taylor has started, we didn't know exactly. We were working a baseball game when he got hired. And I remember you saying like, well, he comes from the Rams, good offense. Like that might help. And then really, as he's made this team his own, like you kind of see a little bit of Sean McVay in him. Like it's definitely, he's getting the genius plug brought his way a little bit too.
And I've questioned his play calling because he still calls the plays. I've questioned his play calling coming up, but this year, somewhere around the beginning to midpoint of the year, everything just started clicking, everything going in line, and everything started working out. But it is sad to see AJ go. The one thing that I will say back on the AJ thing real quick was he did play with Burrow's first year, and they just didn't connect.
Mhm.
Him and AJ and Dalton, even though we could never get over the hump, AJ and Dalton had some great throws, some great years, some great stats, and some good highlights and stuff. But Burrow and AJ just never got on the same page last year. So I think that was what made it a little bit easier to see him go. And like, well, it sucks, but we did get T. Higgins this year. Maybe we get another receiver next year and just like let him go on and do something else and try for a real contender,
Mhm.
ironically enough.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that was supposed to be like, oh, good, they let him go to Arizona where he has a chance to win a ring. And of course, it's funny how
Right.
those things work out sometimes, though. But no, man, I wish you guys all the best of luck. Like, I've never really cheered for an LA team, but I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a lot of players on the Rams that I like, even though I don't
Yeah.
like the team as a whole. But like as a whole, there's no reason not to cheer for Cincinnati. They're weirdly the underdogs, but they seem like the more put together team where the other side is like just a collection of all stars kind of thing.
Right.
So
Yeah, it does. It seems like an all-star team almost over there, doesn't it?
right, it really does. So it's kind of it's like remember when Bama was playing Clemson all those years in they ended up calling that championship string of games factory versus family, and it
Oh
kind of
yeah.
feels it's like the pro version of that. I feel.
Yeah, it does kind of feel that way. I forgot about that, but you're right. It's got the same kind of vibe as back then. The and what T. Higgins, Fred Clemson. So
Right. Yeah, that's true. So yeah, man, I wish you guys the best of luck in this big game. Before we get out of here, we've touched on you being a Gator fan. We talked about the bowl game there for a minute. What do you think's next for the Gators with this new coach? I'll throw that out there for you real quick. What do you think the future holds for them?
Um, I was kind of big on the last one, so that didn't work out too well. He seems very regimented, and I did like what he did down at Raging Cajuns. It's almost like I almost liken it to the Zach
Taylor,
Taylor
yeah.
hire is okay. He's done some good things, or maybe even if go to the Gators references, kind of reminds me of an Urban Meyer thing, where it's like there was bigger coaches out there, but hey, you know what? There's this young hot shot that's coming up out in Utah or wherever he was, and let's give him a look. He's a young guy, not too many people know about him, but the people who really know see some things that he's doing is really good. It's kind of the way I feel. This guy's not very proven. He doesn't have a giant track record, but some of the things that he's done look like he could do something at the next level. He seems like he's very regimented. Like this is the way we're going to do it. He's got deadlines and schedules, and he's going to be in charge from top to bottom. So we'll see. I think that we need somebody that's going to be in charge from top to bottom, because it did kind of like started to get away from us down there in the Gators. Like everybody's doing whatever they want and not really practicing or in shape or anything. So
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see where they are in 2 years when UCF plays Florida. And I would say that me and you could go to the game, but I care about you too much to bring you to our stadium wearing your blue and orange. I would worry about your safety a little too much, so we'll probably just
right.
watch the game from home or whatever, man. But as far as Super Bowl goes, best of luck to you, man. I hope you get the ring. And when you won the AFC, Joey called me just like screaming. So I hope I get a similar call once the clock hits 0, man. So best of luck on Sunday.
It might be a little bit more unlegible because I did take the next day off of work. So
yeah, you're gonna want to do that again either way, I think. So
yeah. So we got the next day off of work. We're gonna be ready to go. I'll definitely call you at the win, and hopefully I do get to call you, because I'm probably not gonna call you and cry if
yeah, I don't blame you at all for that. So guys, that's Joey, and win, lose, or draw. I hope to have you on again soon. I hope it's not another 3 years before we hear from you on the show. So
yeah. You gotta get me on before show 125 or whatever. At least keep it up to 99. I gotta be on before 99.
It is a lot easier with Zoom now, because before we had to meet up and everything. So Zoom makes things a lot easier. So
yeah, I gotta get some more lighting in here, so a little bit dark. But maybe if I had my orange jersey on, it light up a little.
Could reflect a little bit more. Yeah. All right, guys, that's Joey, and thanks everybody for listening. And we'll catch you next time. Enjoy the game. Who Dey?
Who Dey?